Welcome back to A Happy Change. It's been a while since we've caught up, but I thought it'd be a good time to drop in and talk through my 2 to 3 month experience with Sertraline, let you know how I'm doing, and hopefully find out how you guys are doing as well. So, right now we're in the middle of this bizarre coronavirus, COVID-19 lockdown experience. So different countries are facing it in different ways. In the UK at the moment, the schools are closed. Generally people are working from home, and there's a rule in place not to leave the house more than an hour a day for exercise. However, the experiences I'm going through are probably quite typical, regardless of whether or not you're in a global pandemic, and hopefully when you're watching this, you're not. So like usual, in this video, what I'm going to do is talk about some of the good things and some of the bad things. And hopefully that will allow you to gain some insight into what's on the road for you if you've just started taking Sertraline, or perhaps just not feel alone. Just to flag, if you haven't already, there is a private members group for subscribers on Facebook. Do look us up, and as always, please share your comments, share your experiences, ask questions. There's a great community of people that will respond and join in the conversation. So don't feel alone, don't feel like your experience is just something that you're going through. There'll be someone out there who's experienced it, who's come through the other side, and will be able to advise you. So, talking about the good things. In general, my mood is much improved. So, I haven't had many real moments of like slump where I'm struggling with despair. I would say that the last few weeks have been unusual because of the pandemic, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But generally speaking, from where I was a few months ago to where I am now, I am calmer, I'm more rational, I'm more positive about things, I'm positive about myself, I'm positive about relationships and my experiences, and I just feel that in a more empowered place right now, I suppose. I'm more in charge of when I feel good and when I feel bad, if that makes sense. So yes, I still feel down from time to time, but I'm more in charge of removing myself from that situation. And I think that's really important to know, that if you're in that first month of taking the medication, it can still feel horrible. In fact, it can feel horrible after that, but the majority of people move past that and get to a place that I'm in now, where you realise you have more control. It doesn't kind of hit you like a ton of bricks. You don't suddenly kind of like jump out of bed one day and think, yes, everything's fixed. But you'll notice that you're not kind of falling into that pit of despair anymore. Depression isn't kind of like just suddenly like weighing on your shoulders. You feel more able to respond to the way that your body is feeling, to the emotions that you're experiencing, and navigate them, so you can make decisions that kind of lead you forward, or to explore that negative emotion, or you feel better placed to pull yourself out of that negative emotion. I think because of that, I feel more open, I feel more able to communicate the way that I'm feeling. I feel able to have more challenging conversations with people. And whilst I'm not 100% there yet, it's still a thing that I need to work on. I do think that the mindset I'm in now has put me in a stronger position. I feel more productive at work. I feel more productive in my kind of hobbies, etc. So it's just put me in a place where, because I haven't got this kind of weight pressing on my shoulders and fogging my mind up, that I'm more able to engage with people, and I'm more able to kind of engage with opportunities. It's worth saying though, this isn't like everything's fixed. I did say before, you don't just wake up one day, jump out of bed, like high five the cat and go, everything's great now, let's move on with life. Like, there are still things that cause challenge. So whilst I am more rational and more calmer, the last couple of weeks I've been really quiet on the channel, and that's because whilst I've not been in a depression, I've found the change in routine something really hard to deal with. So like all of us at the moment in this pandemic, my routine has gone out of the window completely. And recovering from that hasn't been as like instinctive as I wanted it to be. I found it really difficult to get a good sleep routine down. Like many of us, I suppose, I've probably slipped into some unhealthy habits regarding eating. And I would just say that I found the last 2 weeks perhaps, since the kind of like real lockdown that happened in the UK, quite difficult. Like, I've had a couple of panics in that last 2 weeks, but it's a really unusual situation. And one thing I would say is, whilst I had those panics, they weren't as long lasting as previously. So if I'd had like a real panicky situation, or I'd been like hit by anxiety, it might take me kind of days to recover from that anxiety before I could even start thinking about feeling better. Whereas the anxiety's kind of like hit me, and it's been shocking still, because I'm like, oh, I thought I'd got rid of this feeling. But because of the situation we're in, I'm able to really like rationalize it. I'm able to think, well, look, I can't control this pandemic right now other than doing the things to keep myself and my loved ones safe. Because I've got that space to think rationally about the situation, even though it's causing me panic and anxiety, I'm able to kind of park that panic. I'm able to park that anxiety at a much faster rate. So it's still there, it still happens from time to time, but that's part of the way that humans are designed. If we didn't feel panic, or if we weren't anxious about things, we wouldn't really be human. So that's a normal emotion to feel, and lots of people feel anxious and panicky right now. I would say the other thing that's becoming more and more clear as the months have gone by is that the medication is really helping with one aspect. So it's helping with like my recovery from downtimes and anxiety, but the kind of like triggers, if you like, the things that have caused this, the things that underpin everything that's gone wrong in my brain, they still exist. Like, they're still things that I face. They're still things that, cause me stress, if you like. And the big piece of the puzzle is a talking therapy. So if you haven't got a counsellor, if you're not attending like a CBT session or something, I would say start thinking about investigating that now, because it's going to be a point at this stage where your mind is a little bit clearer, where you're going to start to unpick all of those things that have led you to this place. And the medication can only do so much. Like, it's really clear to me now, even though I had like a real reluctance to speak to a counsellor, and my girlfriend like absolutely drummed that I had to the point that I did, just as lockdown happened, and then I wasn't able to attend anymore. But it's really hit me in the last couple of weeks, I would say, that someone who I can speak to, someone professional that I can speak to about the way that I'm feeling and the experience I've had that's led me to depression and led me to anxiety, or triggered anxiety and depression, is really, really important. So if you're watching this at the moment in April 2020, we're not probably in the position to go and find a therapist. But I would say that if you're watching this at any other point, start seeking out a talking therapy. If you are in lockdown at the moment, so you're watching this like in the context that we're in, there are online things like BetterHelp. It's quite expensive. There are telephone counselling sessions that you can do as well. And I would say that if you haven't, or you've been scared, bear in mind that these people are professional. They deal with this stuff all the time. And I really can't describe how powerful it is just to talk about yourself and your feelings for a minute. And I had like a real profound experience with my counsellor just before lockdown, where they really traced me back to things that had happened in my childhood. And it was like this light bulb that went off in my head. And I was kind of like, do you know what? I've never considered that could be the reason that I'm in this place. And I was lucky that session happened just before we went into shutdown, because it meant that I could just spend some time thinking about that and unpicking that. I still need to carry on that conversation, which is why it's unfortunate. But it's just worth saying that I've reached this point where I recognise medication can do so much. Now I need to start taking some action as well, and unpicking the things that have led me to this point in my life. Another thing that's happened in the last 2 weeks is, because my routine has been totally thrown out the window, I've had like a recurrence of some of the physical side effects. So it felt like I'd stripped back to the first couple of weeks. I've had quite an upset stomach, particularly in the morning, even though I'm taking my medication in the evening. I've had like really bizarre dreams. I've had like night sweats, all of this sort of stuff that I think is from like the heightened anxiety of the situation. So I guess it's worth saying that I know a lot of people say like, when will these things end? And generally speaking, like the side effects do taper off within like the first 4 weeks. But it seems to me that when anxiety is high, and remember anxiety is normal, they can creep back in. I'm just better equipped to deal with them now, so I can be careful about, what I eat. I can think about, the sleeping situation and bedtime routines to make sure that I'm calm. I can think about maybe moving my dose slightly earlier, just to try and let it cycle through my system a bit more before I go to bed. So all of these things I feel more in control of, whereas if I'd gone back to, say, full-on side effects in, say, week 6, I probably wouldn't have been as equipped, and I would have started panicking a little bit. So just to say, don't be a little bit surprised if the side effects creep back in temporarily. I feel confident that by next week things will have leveled out. I will be a bit more familiar with my routine and more able to kind of wave them goodbye again and get on with my life. And also to reiterate, a few people have mentioned about going up dosages, like starting at 25, going to 50, or being on 50, going to 100. It's probably quite normal that when you go up a dose, because your brain is suddenly getting used to all of these things or these chemical changes again, you're going to hit reset on some of those side effects. So yes, it's worth increasing your dose if that's what your doctor says, but actually just be prepared for, and probably another week of maybe an upset stomach coming back, or headaches, dry mouth, those sorts of things. That's expected. I guess maybe that's something to bear in mind, that if you're having a conversation with your doctor before you start the medication, and you really insist on going in on 25 milligram rather than a standard 50 milligram dose, that's just something to be aware of. Your body will need to get used to it twice. So you really do kind of be cautious and clear about whether it's better to start on 50 or better to start on 25, I suppose. So I really do hope that you're all well. I hope that the coronavirus hasn't affected you or your loved ones. I'm really aware of how scary it is at the moment. So I would just flag join in the comment section. I'll put a link to the Facebook group in the description as well. If you haven't already subscribed but you're finding these videos useful, man, it makes such a difference to me. I've crept past 2,000 subscribers, which is kind of blowing my mind since lockdown. And I should say bye. Thanks very much for watching. That was a loud thigh slap right there. Oof.